So this week we take a look at the My Little Pony episode Stranger Than Fanfiction. As we return from the hiatus, Season 6 picks up again with a Rainbow Dash and Daring Do episode. The story starts off with Rainbow Dash and Twilight as Twilight reads to Rainbow Dash from an story of Daring Do, and we see part of the story play out. It actually sets up something that Daring Do was doing earlier in real life, as that treasure carries on throughout the rest of the story. Twilight lets slip something that I hope will be elaborated on in a future episode, a peace summit with the Griffins in Griffinstone that she and Princess Celestia had to take care of. I hope at some point we return to Griffinstone and see the evolution of the Griffins' friendship and see what happens when they and the ponies start working together. Likewise, I'd like to return to the Dragonlands and see how that relationship also irons out. Rainbow Dash, on the other hand, is off on her own adventure to the convention. There she meets a fan named Quiverpants who loves Daring Do just as much as she does, but unlike Rainbow Dash, does not love the newer book series. This is compared to a lot of fans who like the first 3 parts of a certain movie, but don't like the second 3 parts of the same movie series. Things that fans often say that they love the first trilogy but not the second trilogy often includes examples like Star Wars, but can also sometimes apply to movies like Star Trek, the Batman movies. It can apply to Indiana Jones movies, Harry Potter films, basically anything that comes into a series. Even My Little Pony itself can be divided into a half that fans like and a half that fans hate. And sometimes the fandom will disagree on which movie numbers in the series were the better or the weaker or the stronger or the whatever. And this can cause friction between fans. As our story goes on, Rainbow Dash and Quiverpants get kidnapped by Cavaleron and taken into the jungle, where Quiverpants thinks the entire thing is just a show being put on for his benefit. He believes that these are all just actors on a set, and that this whole thing is part of some kind of phony Daring Do adventure, and that it's all scripted. He doesn't realize the danger that he's really in, which Rainbow Dash is aware of the danger and is trying to keep them safe and get them out of this dangerous situation. And all Quiverpants can do is argue and bicker and complain about how inaccurate and unrealistic and how phony everything is, and goes on and on and on about how everything's fake, until we get to a point where he finally realizes that the danger is real danger, and that this whole situation is real, and now he has to depend on Rainbow Dash and Daring Do to get him out of the situation. But even then, he can't stop being smug and arrogant about things, and continues acting on as if he knows more than Daring Do about stuff. Which sometimes he does. With help from both him and Rainbow Dash, Daring Do is able to get her hopes on the treasure, and they part ways. Daring Do running off to the museum, while Quiverpants and Rainbow Dash return home in a different direction. And for the credits, we hear Quiverpants just going on and on and on about how he would improve the Daring Do series. It's a very realistic, possibly improvised series of lines that we get for the ending, and I like how they did something different for the credits instead of playing music. It really sort of drives in that whole nerdy approach. A few observations about this particular episode. One, this is a plot that I've seen done before. A lot of old cartoons and TV shows have done the we think it's all fake until we realize it's really real plot. I think it might have been done on like Tiny Toons or Animaniacs or Freakazoid or something, or maybe in one of the Nicktoons, but I know for certain that this plot was done in Kim Possible when Cousin Larry was given the birthday experience of being kidnapped by one of Kim Possible's villains, held hostage, and Kim had to come save him. And throughout the whole experience, he thought he was just getting some kind of live action role playing adventure that Kim had set up to entertain him on his birthday, and he thought he was interacting with actors in costumes and interacting with props on sets and stuff, and he never once for the whole episode realized he was in genuine real danger, and sort of rolled with this whole play acting thing, even going as far as to point out the inaccuracies of the villain's plot, why it was doomed to fail, how to improve it, and complaining about all of the cliche tropes that were happening around him. Same thing that happened here. A more well-known example would probably be the movie Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is about aliens who abduct a bunch of actors into outer space because they believe the actors' TV show was a real-life thing. The actors interacting with the aliens believe the aliens are fans in costumes who are recreating the TV show for their own amusement and don't realize the danger they're in until after the danger becomes more dangerous and they finally realize that it's really real and that it's actual real aliens on a real spaceship in the real outer space, and they have to stop pretending to be on the TV show and start really saving the real galaxy. This episode is a lot like either of those two examples, hitting a lot of the same plot points. I expect I Love Kim Possible a lot to make a reference to at least one of these things at some point in her upcoming review. If she doesn't, I'll be horribly disappointed. Suppose on the subject of Kim Possible and conventions, we should also mention it could be possible that she might make a reference to the Fearless Ferret episode, but that had more to do with conventions and less to do with mixing up reality and fantasy. Although it did touch on that trope a little bit, it did it in a different way. The episode gave us a really fun look at conventions in the first half of its episode, with tons of stuff happening in the background. Lots of details in every booth and on every cosplayer that really captured what it really feels like to go to a convention. Right down to the unusual merchandise, the photographers taking pictures of each other's costumes, the costumes themselves having varying levels of quality, all of the geeking out that fans do when they talk with each other, and so on. The second half of this was a typical Daring Do story, which mirrors a lot of the stuff that you see in something like Indiana Jones, which Daring Do is based on. Some fans may enjoy the first half of this more than the second half, and some may enjoy the second half more than the first. Depends on whether you like the Where's Waldo atmosphere of the convention scene, or whether you like the action and adventure of Daring Do finding treasures and disarming traps. We got a really great reference in the second half to one of the Indiana Jones movies, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when they do the whole, I didn't say go over it, I said go around it, which is a reference to the line, I didn't say go between them, I said go around. And at the convention end, we get some nice references to anime and other geeky things, as there's more than just daring do work into the background. Although I guess a lot of this still feels like they're reusing pre-existing animation cells, but whatever. It was nice to see a lot of returning characters when Daring Do was on her adventure, but it was also nice to see new characters as well. If Alizodo had showed up with his army of cats, it would have been too many returning characters. The alligator was a nice way to say that this is still the Daring Do universe and she has more to worry about than Alizodo, that she can have other enemies, and to show that the Daring Do stories can hold up without Alizodo having to be included constantly. I also love some of the other details that happened in the background, like how all of the ponies have bracelets, like the kind of bracelet that you get at conventions. Even though Rainbow Dash was on the cover of a Daring Do book, no pony recognizes her when she's at the convention. No pony recognizes her as the character from the book, or as a cosplayer as the character from the book. But then I guess recognizing Rainbow Dash at Daring Do convention would be like recognizing some one-shot, one-off character who only appeared in one story of an ongoing series. Even though Rainbow Dash was on the cover of one book, she wasn't a major character throughout the Daring Do series, and I guess wouldn't be recognized immediately by other ponies. The episode points out the flaws and cliches of this genre of storytelling and pokes fun of them in a way that works for what type of character Quiverall Pants is. It's a good way to allow yourself to have poor writing, but to make fun of the cliches and the poor writing as you're doing that, as if this kind of stuff may be stupid, but it really is happening and there's nothing you can do about it. And Quiver Pants also sort of reminds me of all those bronies who left the fandom. The ones like Digibro and Tommy Oliver and Gibbon Tate, who were fans of the series at one time, but sometime between season 4 and season 6, saw that the series wasn't as enjoyable as the first 3 seasons and gave up being a fan, quit doing reviews, and started having way too many arguments with the new direction that My Little Pony went in after Twilight became an Alicorn. That's why when people look at things like Twilight's Winds or Twilight's Castle, they go, oh no, this is going to ruin the series. And while that's not entirely true, it is a legitimate thing that people have an argument with. This may not have been what I was expecting when I first heard the synopsis for this episode, but overall I loved what we got and it was a fun little episode. A lot of enjoyable stuff went on. I find myself liking the convention half better than the Daring Do half, despite the fact that when I was watching I was bored of the convention half and couldn't wait to get to the Daring Do part. It was nice to get Daring Do again because we didn't have her in season 5, despite her being present in season 4 and season 2. Anyhow, I think that's about all the thoughts I have for this particular episode. Thank you for watching and good night.